A premise, as we do with all of our guests, every given moment involves change. Am I right, Jarrod? It's
That
an
is right.
uncomfortable phase. It's an uncomfortable phase, but the metal of every given human being is forged in fire. Integration or evolution? What works for you? What doesn't? In today's, if you want to know it or not, dysfunctional society and in functional sobriety, a clear blueprint is never provided, which is why mentorship is almost a compulsory given. To the opposite end of that coin, continuous independent study is a faithfully enriching tool. The best part is going from failure to failure with unfinished enthusiasm, to quote late Prime Minister
Mm,
Winston Churchill, while also
mm.
embracing change. This independent study is what Jarrod Collier embraces fully. Jarrod has enjoyed recent success as founder and host of the initiative Strength in Time and his podcast entitled Redeem Yourself. During his
Yes.
visit with us today, he chats on his path to recovery, some lessons he has purveyed, and how exactly to go about to step outside the box. My kind of man. Jarrod, welcome.
No, thank you so much for that, Chris, man. I'm happy to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well, my kind sir. Hale and hearty, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Jared,
Yeah,
take me
yeah.
back a little bit. Firstly, whereabouts are you from in the States?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay. Would that be the Midwest? Or which part of the United
Nah,
States is that?
we're considered the East Coast. So East Coast, like
Oh, okay. So that's more the
it's
east
like
side.
weird. Yeah, East Coast, but we're the southernmost point of the North.
Well, I can understand that. Look, I'm still studying all the certain parts of the United States. I've been working with Americans for a long time now, ever since 2020. So I'm making a point of to, could I use the swear word and say ingratiate myself
Do your
into,
thing.
but that being said, Jared, take me back. Where did your first taste of either the drink or the drug start? And give me a timeline as to ultimately how you decided to just go through the emotion and then say, no, not for me.
Yeah, of course, man. You know what? Let's see. My first bout with addiction. What I found, because they say hindsight is 2020, right? Is that my first taste actually happened well before I ever took a sip of alcohol or did a drug, because it was based around like trauma and my inner feelings, like how I felt about myself and how others treated me. So around 13 or 14, and it was something simple, just being stupid as kids, hanging out with my cousins. A family member left some Coronas in the fridge, and we thought it'd be okay during the summer to start drinking them, and it kind of loosened us up. So the habit started there. And then, of course, high school hits, and I moved. And when it all started to fall apart for me, I moved from Florida, which is where I'm originally from, Tallahassee, Florida, and everything I knew was there. My family. Oh, there she is.
There she
Tallahassee, woo
is.
woo.
Yeah, Tallahassee.
So yeah, you were saying you began drinking Corona ciders at a young age.
Yes, yes, yes. So we began drinking some Coronas at a young age. And it all started. My dad, well, that was at 13 or 14, right? But before that, my father moved from Tallahassee to Richmond, to, I want to say, go to seminary school. But he left me, my mother, and she was pregnant with my younger brother when I was like 8 or 9, right? So my dad growing up was like my idol. So like my support, my bonds, my friends, when he moved, all kind of left. And my mother had to focus so much time on work and being pregnant that I, just kind of went my own way and did my own thing. So after school, it was not so much focused on the schoolwork. I was just out running around with my friends, right? So yeah, like
Right.
it was the life back then, but I really didn't have the guidance and stuff that I missed, like when my father left. So
Mm.
13 hits, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna move everybody to Richmond. Like we're all coming to Virginia." And hindsight is 2020. He just assumed that the same support system that we had in Florida with all of our family, the church and all that stuff would just kind of happen in Richmond. Well, it never did for me. So you remove like the head of the household, who's supposed to be like the authority figure, the disciplinarian, and then you drop them back into the life of a teenager, right? Now you got
Doesn't work.
young me. No. I'm defiant as all hell. It's like, man, I haven't listened to you since I was 9. You haven't talked to me. I've seen you, barely seen you, and now you're just working all the time. How dare you tell me what to do now? Which is crazy, but
I think we all get that one.
So it was like, it was one of those things. And it left me, when I moved to Virginia, it left me trying to find a space to fit in, right? The style here was different. In Florida, I was wearing shorts year round. Maybe a hoodie. Up here, they had on Timberland boots. So I had to really just kind of find my way, like navigate it. Like it was just all completely different. And when I couldn't, it was like, you're smoking weed? Cool, let me try that. So then I started hanging out with people smoking weed, which led to we can drink and party. Well, the party never stopped for me, right? What should have just been something that maybe Friday we meet up, had a little fun, and then go about my life and keep progressing, turned into years of, oh no, I need this to function. I need this to fit in. I need this to feel like I'm a part of a group of people, so I have quote unquote friends. So that was like my life from say 15 to 27. It just began to continue. I worked when I could hold down a job, right? I worked to spend my money however long I lasted. When my money ran out, then I'd try to go get some work to get back to it. But so that was my relationship with alcohol. At around 19, I was introduced to cocaine, which opened up a completely different world. I was with a couple buddies. Yeah. So when that introduced me, it was just a completely different ball game. And it was like off to the races. I was 19 with a couple buddies. We were all playing poker at like 2:00 in the morning. I really think they had me there to take my money because I was hammered. Like I still remember sitting with a bottle of Captain Morgan's, right? And I'm drinking out of the bottle. Like that's how. But that's how gone I was. Like I was sitting at this table.
Wrong one.
Drinking out of a bottle. Yeah, there you go. That.
There it is.
And my friend comes out the room and he dumps this substance on the table, and I'm like, "Well, man, what is that?" They started to tell me, "Oh, you don't want that. You don't want that." Well, I'm drunk. You can't tell me I don't want something. My thoughts are gone. My ability to make wise decisions and choices is out of the window. Like,
right.
No, give me that.
Were you into crime? Did you ever? Were you bad?
Yeah, after that. Before that, I would do crime, and then it's more thankful I didn't get caught.
Right.
Right. I didn't get caught, because I would have gotten caught. It would have been a long laundry list of stuff I would have had to overcome. So they introduced me to cocaine. And it was like overnight, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to sell this stuff because that is the right idea. Right?
Wow.
It went from here to here overnight. Just like, I'm going to be a drug
From
dealer.
employee to entrepreneur.
Yeah. Right? No plan. No nothing.
It's all or nothing, son.
Right. That's the mind of an addict, right? I don't want to do the small baby steps, right? I need it now. So it was like, cool. So I set off into this mission that, to become a cocaine seller. And I did it. It was a very short run, mind you, because I was so out there with everything I was doing. I wanted the false acceptance. I still was reaching out to be a part of something. And then by 21, people are growing up, they're graduating college, they're having careers, and here I am, my group of friends is getting younger, right? So how can I still act like I have it all together? Oh, I need money, right? So what's the fact? Or let me sell drugs. Let me feel like I'm a part of it, and it opened doors to like people and places that I never thought like I would see in that same realm. So it was like a false acceptance for me that I fell in love with. I loved it. I loved getting the phone calls. Hey, come to this party. Come here. It's like, no, they didn't want me there. They just wanted what I could supply, but I didn't care. Like, that's all I was after. The money was like,
that was
whatever. I
your
just wanted to
purpose,
be
right?
around it. Right. Because I had a habit. So I really was just doing it to come to the party, get a little money and hang out and do drugs. Like, I didn't care. That run came to an end in 2008. I was incarcerated for a year for the distribution of cocaine. And I sat in there with my thoughts. I actually came home at I want to say 9 or 10 months, because there was a drug program you could go into to help you learn how to become sober for addicts. And I didn't listen to a word.
No?
No, not at all. I went to this program with the intentions of it would knock time off of my sentence. And that's all I heard. Oh, I can go sit through this and get some time to come home early. Fine, sign me up. Which is kind of funny, because the young lady who runs that program now helps me give back to that program. So I'm just there.
Wow.
I go there now to make sure they listen.
Works.
It's kind of funny. Right.
Everything happens for a reason.
Exactly. So I came home. I turned 22 in jail. Came home, had my first son. You would think, kids are supposed to be the way to help you change. Didn't change. It actually made my depression and anxiety and feeling less than that much greater, because I'm a felon now. Like, how am I going to take care of this child? I can't even take care of myself, which led to me drinking more and using more. A couple of years goes by, I turned 27, and this is where, I'll start to wrap it up. I got to my U-turn moment. I had my second son, who he was a month old. His birthday is July 8th, 2013. And that was probably at the darkest point of my addiction, because I see a way out of the hole that I dug. I had mentally beat myself into submission that my life was over. Me and the mother of my sons, we weren't getting along, rightfully so. I was dead broke, couldn't find a job. We were all living in my parents' household. And I assumed like everybody was talking about me and making fun of me, because at this point I'm a full-blown grown man with absolutely nothing to my name. August 15th of 2013 hits. It was like, I call it my goodbye day. I started day drinking, went from like place to place, talking to people that I hadn't talked to in a while, and started pretty early, getting as hammered as I could. That night I got dropped off at my parents' house, probably like 12 to 2 in the morning, and was outside having a meeting, with God, like yelling at the sky, like, why am I here? Why did you bring me here? This isn't the life you promised me. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, if I have to live this way, take me. Like, I'm done. I am over it. I'm sorry. And
Jarrod, we welcome it. Please don't fight back your tears.
Honestly, every week we go through this, Chris is always crying.
Listen, I've told this story 1,000 times now, and it gets to this portion, and it's always the same. Like, the emotions are so real and still there. Like, I can't fight.
But it's understandable, Jarrod. It's a swell of pride now, and
thank you.
We get emotional because of that.
Yeah,
there's nothing to be ashamed of. Ashamed of that.
Oh no,
men may cry.
Listen, I'll cry some grown man tears, man. I don't care. Yeah. I'll let them out now.
My man. My man.
Yes. So I ended up going inside my parents' house and, just started popping pills. I had no intentions to want to wake up. I just was ready for it to be over. Thank God during that period, I fell asleep and it didn't go any further than that.
Thank God.
I woke up, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I woke up the next morning angry, still irritated because it wasn't supposed to be that way. Like, why am I still here? Like, no, I was supposed to lay down and
Wow.
that was it. Which then led me to my parents and my father. As much crap as I gave him throughout the years, it was like the one time he stepped up and he just looked at me and was like, man, let me get you some help. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know it was this bad. I just thought you were going through a phase. We get to the hospital. I'm still a wreck, like bawling my eyes out, pissed off. And it was like this calming moment came over me, which I know now was my spiritual awakening. Damn near slapped me and was like, hey, you got a second chance at life. Do what you got to do. And immediately, and all the people I talked to in recovery have had this feeling, so it. Immediately.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
What was that? That was great. It was very timely. But immediately this like calming spirit just came over me, and all of my fears, all of that anxiety, any question that I had was washed away. And I remember looking at the nurse and just saying, you know what, I'm ready to go. Like, take me wherever you got to take me. Let's do this. And that was it. That was, my foundation. That was when I decided to make that turn. And I went up in that room. It kind of reminded me of my jail cell at first. I laughed a lot. I cried a lot, but I didn't run. It was the first time I sat with myself and all of my emotions and all of my feelings and just dealt with them. And, I was just ready for change. I reached that point where I was just ready for change, and I have not looked back since.
Wow.
Well,
that
my.
Yeah. That spiritual experience, it works. It works.
It does.
We're lucky if we get to experience that,
Most certainly.
Not everybody
Most certainly.
does. So you've been sober 9 years. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And you have quite an interesting path you're on now. I mean, I always watch your videos, and you're on a spiritual path still.
Yeah, I like to think so. And with everything that I'm building now, actually came from another moment, where life threw a test at me. The place I was working was not working out, and I was in a space of like pain mentally, a lot of anxiety, and I was meeting with my therapist, and she was like, well, you just seem like you're worn out. Like, what could you do on a daily basis, or what could you talk about without preparation? If I asked you to give me a speech right now, like, what would it be? And I was like, well, that's easy. Like, sobriety and recovery. I've been living, and this was 7 years at the time. I was like, well, I've been doing that every day for the last 7 years. And she was like, well, you should look there. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what kind of careers are there? And then she turned me on to the peer recovery specialist courses, which I started to take those. And then I really was like, you know what? There's so many people out there who may not have found success in recovery by going to AA and NA, right? Because for me, my sobriety came from like an internal overhaul. Like, I did everything but reading books, meditating, giving back to the community, being of service, but I didn't know where to look. And I was like, well, maybe if I just tell my story, somebody sitting at home not knowing where to turn may find hope in this. And that's how everything started, and I just kept going.
Well, you know what? I have to say that hearing you speak, I can say the same for Daniela. There's a lot to identify with. There's a lot to correlate with in your story. I also had that experience where I was brought to my knees spiritually, with nowhere to turn to. Two things. And Danny, you are also part of this trifecta, this triumvirate, is that level of maturity. The more clean time that you accrue, and the more that you stick to your path of recovery, however that may be, through a structured program, a 12-step
Mhm.
inpatient outpatient facility, or um, harm reduction, whatever the case may be, that level of maturity that you build in character as you accrue
Mm.
more clean time, for me, starts to become a lot more prevalent in a person's character. It's an amazing sight to see. And I've made this second blanket statement as well. Maybe it's my own way of thinking. Maybe it's my sense of observation that needs a recheck. But people today, like you, like Keith Butler, who we've had here early on in the year, like Tim Lodgen, Lumi Doka, Sandra Lee, name them by the buckets. All of them
Mhm.
have one common denominator apart from sobriety. They are fantastic, natural communicators. Am I right or am I wrong in
Mm.
that summation? And
I
that more or
totally
less
agree with that.
led you and that led you to starting your own podcast. Tell us about
Right.
that.
So the Redeem Yourself podcast, actually, it was something that just kind of came on a whim. My friend Eden, we were on a Clubhouse, and she messaged me to buy a hoodie actually, and we were talking, and she was like, "Well, come on to my show." She did some show, I forget the platform it was then, and we can talk. So in the midst of us having this conversation on live, she was like, "It's a story of redemption," and I was like, "Yeah, redeem myself. That's what I do. Like just like you, redeem yourself." And it stuck. So after that, she calls me and she was like, "Hey, you should do a podcast with that name." And I'm like, "Podcast? Like, I don't even know what that is yet." And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's the universe, right? Giving me a sign to just step into it and try it, right? So they started with just Eden and I. We'd sit down on Instagram Live, and we would talk, just have basic conversations, which turned into interviews. And then, she stepped out to do whatever people in California do when they get busy. And she gave me the reins. She was like, "Hey, do what you got to do with it. Just make it happen." So I
Let's
sat still for
go.
about, right. It's like 6 months. Like, all right, what do I do? Like, I never thought about podcasting. And then it just hit me like, you know what? It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to use your voice to make sure people, hear the message of recovery over and over and over again. And that's what I've been leading on to do, is just continue to push it forward. We just actually shot our first big visual today. It's a place in, if you ever come to Richmond, Virginia, it's the first standalone non-alcohol bottle shop, and she
What
invited
the
us
hell is
in.
that?
A non-alcohol bottle shop.
Oh, bottle.
Yeah.
I thought you said. I thought you
Bottle
said
shop.
bio. I'm like, what?
No, no, no. Bottle.
Bottle.
So yeah, she
Very
invited us in
cool.
there.
Disruptive
So
marketing
Wow.
taken to a whole new level.
yeah, I know, right? I'm gonna have to use that. So
So what's
yeah,
up with
that
that?
was
That sounds cool.
we sat down in there today, and we interviewed her to really get eyes on her space. Being with the holidays coming up, um, to kind of offer some hope to the people who have to go to those certain environments, whether you're around your family and your friends, and that everybody's going to drinking. Like, hey, you can come to this store, buy
Hmm.
you something that's non-alcoholic, and that some of them have like even like healthy stuff in them, and you could still feel a part of the conversation without sacrificing your sobriety or recovery with it. So it was a
Mm,
pretty cool
mm.
conversation, and I can't wait to put that out there.
Yeah, like it takes the
Debbie, if I
anxiety
may.
out of the whole thing.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
yeah,
Chris.
because you can enter a space.
Hmm.
Well, what I wanted to say is, listening to you speak about this bottle shop, it kind of makes me excited to see the horizons that sobriety is going to go. And you're more than welcome to throw in your 50 cents here as well. Whereas, I mentioned a couple of sentences ago, you've had these degrees of sobriety, achieving recovery. You have these levels, but now it's almost like evolution. It's starting to evolve more gradually. Because let's face it, recovery is a tricky thing because it's mind, body, soul, spirit.
Mm.
Hmm.
And in so doing, each one has to discover their own journey, their own compass, be it morally, be it otherwise. How has the reception been with regards to this new enterprise? And I don't want to tread on toes, but has there been any adversity? Have people said, how can you do something like this? As is the norm
Uh,
as well in this recovery community, I'm sorry to say.
Man, I haven't really experienced much negativity with it. Despite,
Thank the good
maybe
Lord.
people, yeah, maybe people locally that, never thought that I would change. But, I abide by simple rules, man. The four agreements was a game changer for me. And not
Oh,
taking things
yes.
personally. Like I really thrive off of that because my addiction and all of my depression and anxiety, I used to listen to what people said about me, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
now it's like I don't care. If it's bad, I can't let it affect who I am and who I'm
Yeah.
becoming. So even if it did, it probably wouldn't, get to me or I hear it. But for the most part, it's been all love. It's been extremely welcoming. You got
Oh,
something
good on
negative
you,
to say
mate.
about somebody giving back to the community, I don't even know like how you could formulate that. So it's weird.
You got to pray for that one. But
Yeah,
it's
it's like
you've gotten your what do they call it? Well, I know you're getting your self-esteem back, but you're doing esteemable acts, and I've said this before.
right,
You do the esteemable acts, and you gain that esteem back.
mhm,
And what you're
right,
doing is really amazing because you're talking and learning, and you're helping people stay sober
mhm,
as you're talking to them, like we are today. And
most certainly.
we just do it because I mean, there's nothing to gain but meeting new people, having an
Mhm,
awesome conversation, and learning more about how people got sober. And we talk to experts and everything like that too. So
mhm.
with your classes that you're taking, what is your next step? Are you going to try to get the podcast like with commercials? Are you going to start or are you working in recovery? Like, what are you doing now?
So I work in recovery every day. I see clients in the community. I do telehealth visits,
Oh,
other outreach aspects. So that's first and foremost. I would love, 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 to get the podcast to the point where we do have some form of commercials and sponsors. But I'm a fan of just putting in the hard work and just letting all those things come to me, like law of attraction. So when the time
love
is
it.
right for
Mm,
that,
mm.
I know it will appear, but I thoroughly enjoy doing it. So whenever that does come, I'm open, willing, and ready to accept it. I've also, for the last year, been working. There's a college here in Virginia called William and Mary. They run a program for
Mm,
entrepreneurs.
mm.
My wife and I are trying to start detox centers and rehab homes because there's just a major need for them here. So
Wow.
I've been trying to dedicate the time in between everything else to make sure we see that vision all the way through.
That's big time.
Wow.
That's awesome. I
I'm
mean,
trying.
really,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you.
Unbelievable.
I come from Malibu area, and
Okay.
that's the land. That's like the land of these things, all the way.
Okay.
Not just from Malibu, but they have them
Hmm.
all the way, to the valley in California,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
there's every kind, and there's so many of them, but there's so many more needed. And
Right.
I've seen friends that were felons,
Hmm.
bottom of the barrel to now helping a lot of people and very successful with these detox centers. And it takes a specific person to be able to do that, and a person who's been through it is,
Oh yeah.
I've seen nothing but success with these people, and
Okay.
it's incredible. It's pretty
Well,
cool.
that is good to know. Good to know. Hopefully, I can be
So
a copycat of that success.
go ahead, Chris.
Copy what works. Copy what works. And put your
Yeah,
own little spin on it. I want to share something with you. You mentioned the form agreements, and I'm assuming it's that book by Don Miguel Ruiz, right?
that one. Yes.
Do yourself a do yourself a favor and listen to the audiobook version of Musashi's Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi, the swordsman.
Okay.
There's a lovely audiobook version, and there's a certain part in that book which would be emphasized, and you will realize yourself you're a brainy chap that correlates with the four agreements: cutting and killing. What do we do psychologically? And this counts to recovery as well as sobriety. What do we tend to do? A lot of us want to win. We are taught somewhere in this circle of life to go win. But objectively speaking, it's a superlative quality, because how are you going to get there? If the reach is beyond the grasp, how are you going to get there? No one provides you with that blueprint, right? So what do? We backpedal. So we delve back into the past. Can you see the methodology here? If you
Yeah.
can't go forward, you are oppressed, backpedal to the past. All you can focus on is here and now. Cutting and killing. Think about it, and then if you tell me it'll correlate or not with the four agreements, because that, to me, in my walk of recovery, is just unbelievable. And it's not just in recovery, it's in business every given day of life. Because with these social contracts that we have in recovery, it's just far too easy to become stagnant, to
Right.
Oh, yes.
get into a comfort zone.
Yes.
And we want to dream big. We have to achieve big. Go for what was lost. But by remaining in the here and now, doing the cutting and the killing, we're taking that step forward.
All right. Cool. What was the name of that book again?
The Book of Five Rings.
The Book of Five Rings. Okay. I'll most certainly check that out.
Please do.
When I got sober,
Sorry, I had to shoehorn that in there.
hey, you know what? You're the brilliant one around here. So share.
Crap.
I love that.
Just like
I love
you.
that you. I mean, it's true. I love that you said the law of attraction. When I got sober 1 year, I watched the law of attraction, and I absolutely flipped out. Was obsessed with it, and
Yeah.
I just thought it was the most amazing thing. And I used it for years. I'm now doing the Lou Tice Pacific Institute to try to retrain my brain because, like Chris said, I'm in my 12th week. You didn't know that, Chris?
You didn't tell me
Oh, I
that.
thought you were stuck. Yes,
My
I'm in
jaw
week
dropped
12.
to the ground.
Every week we meet. But so
I'm jealous.
I've been trying
I'm
to,
jealous.
you know.
There it is. I said it.
But what happens is you know, I've been in sobriety for a long time. What happens is, yes, you do get stagnant, and sometimes, well, a lot of times, your alcoholism comes in and it makes you insecure. And because you can't always be doing esteemable acts, we have problems in life, we have insecurities, and sometimes they can keep really hitting you hard. And
Oh yeah.
when you don't pick up a drink and you're kind of stagnant, it hurts. It's
Yeah.
really hard. Yeah. So
In-
like retraining my brain, like if I think about when I was sober in 1 year, I was on this pink cloud, and I still live the most amazing life. You know, it's just harder. not the recovery part. But like for you, how do you keep fresh? Like what is your suggestions for you know, not just helping others, which that is the main thing that I've seen really work. Like, what do you do for yourself that keeps you in line and not going down that horrible road of lies and deceit?
So, I mean, the simple answer there is that, you know, when I got the second chance, is that I understand that no matter what or how I feel, right, I can't go back to that. But I heard something from a motivational speaker, I believe it was Les Brown, and he had this quote, and he said, what did he say? He said, like, our mind, it was something, I don't want to butcher the quote, but it was like, our minds are a garden, you know, make sure you're giving it the proper nutrients and whatnot. So when he said that, I can tell when I'm in that space of like, nothing's moving, I'm stagnant, I can tell, oh, I'm not doing the work. And the work for me is like, let me listen to an audiobook. Let me meditate. Let me exercise. Let me drink more water, But it's paying attention to those feelings because they do happen. And that was like the whole premise of stepping out of the box. What I found in my recovery journey is like, I'm a natural creator. So when I'm busy, like doing the lives or shooting a podcast or on set as an extra on film or out in the community, when I have downtime, right? And I'm just like sitting still and nothing's coming, don't have anything to record, nothing shooting, and I'm trying to like force myself to say something and I just can't, is when those thoughts creep in. And I'm like, oh no, it's happening. Let me go back to what I know works. And that's when I listen to the audio, listen to some like positive affirmations and meditate and such. But that's the main way that I've always kind of got myself out of that slump.
This too shall pass is a really great one, isn't it?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I try to use that as much as I can.
Have you found yourself in a position where you were, in a bad position, like as far as maybe in a bar? Or, I mean, have you ever been in a position where your sobriety was threatened for whatever reason? It doesn't matter what it is.
No, because
What
it's
did
like,
you do?
I'm just so comfortable with who I am. Like drinking and using it just isn't an option. Like I don't ever want to see that person again. If I do go out, I know when to leave the party. Like the first time I went out in probably like 2 years, right? Because COVID shut a lot of stuff down. But this past weekend, that was funny. That was a good one. I'm a big Eagles fan, Philadelphia Eagles fan. And when they played the Dallas Cowboys a couple Sundays ago, a few of my old buddies were like, hey, you want to go to the bar, the same bar that we used to get hammered at every week, and watch the game? And I was like, sure. And like, oh, can you pick us up? I'm like, yeah, no big deal. I'll pick y'all up. We can ride up there. So I go pick them up. We're watching the game. As soon as the ref says game over, I'm paying for my food and I'm leaving. Right? I look at them and say, hey, y'all need a ride home. They still drink. So they were like, oh no, we're gonna stay. And I left. It's just not an option for me. But I know when to leave. And I just kind of laughed like, man, if it wasn't for sobriety, I'd be right in there with them on a Sunday night, knowing I got to get up at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday to get the kids ready to go to school. Like, I just can't allow any of it to mess up what I got going on. It's not an option. And I like to preface that with saying it's not an option yet. Just because I don't get triggered and haven't gotten triggered doesn't mean I won't be tested. So it's just being aware of when that moment is going to come and making sure I pay attention to it. And I think that's the most important piece, is just knowing that it's there. It's definitely still there, and I just got to be alert.
No,
I'm glad I asked
absolutely.
that question because you made me realize something. That people and this is kind of what I want to let other people know when they're young in sobriety, is when you're solid and you're doing the work and you're giving back and all the stuff, because it's not just one thing, it's a lot of things that help
It's a lot.
keep you
Right.
in long-term sobriety, that you don't have to worry, because it's not something that is a part of your life. It's just
Right.
You're a different person. You're reborn, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I am
And to put it in
who
a
I was
similar
always
context,
intended to be.
absolutely.
Exactly.
And to put it in a similar context, when the fear of the current reality is greater than the fear of change, that's when you change.
Right. I like that.
That's a Tony
Very well
that's a
said.
Tony Robbins quote. That's a Tony Robbins quote of all things, but it's so applicable in recovery. Paraphrasing Daniela, life happens and it can throw you a curveball. Short term, mid term, long term recovery. And I appreciate you for what you said, because that's even a caution that I have in my back mind, that I'll always have another drink in me. I'll always have another drug in me. But I don't know if I have another recovery in me. So when the
Right.
fear of the current reality is greater Or you know what, let me just rephrase that. When the pain of the current reality is greater than the fear of change, that's when you change.
Hmm.
That's when you adapt. That's when you evolve.
Hmm.
Staying busy, practicing self care, however that may look.
Hmm.
It's on the constant or it's consistent monitoring, it's consistent presentness, if that's a
Oh
word. I
yeah.
just made up a word that doesn't exist. Being in the present
Presentness. There you
consistently.
go. It's a word now. It's cool.
I hate developing my own lexicon. Daniela normally laughs at me because of that, but that's ultimately it at the end of the day. Consistent, being laconic consistently, not policing yourself 24 hours a day like a robot, like a Terminator robot, but identifying consistently where you can improve. And,
I
it
love
can be a comforting
something
process.
about sobriety that really was the most freeing and most amazing thing was because I never even spoke about the word hope, and I really
Hmm.
never thought about it, and I had absolutely no spiritual connection whatsoever. It
Hmm.
just hit me like a ton of bricks when I got sober, thank God. And I just turn it over constantly. It's like let go, let God. And whatever your
Oh
God looks
yeah.
like, it doesn't matter. It's so nice. I don't care. You can write it on a piece of paper and shove it in the toilet and flush it away
Hmm.
because you don't have to hold on to it because you are
Absolutely.
completely powerless.
It's
You really
gone.
are, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like I loved in AA just learning how powerless we are over people, places,
Hmm.
and things. And I never thought about that before. I thought I could control everything, you know? And
Right.
just to not have to be in charge anymore, it's such a relief.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
we changed so much here.
Most certainly. Most certainly.
Yeah.
And then you realize too, it's like, why would I want to control everything? Like, who wants that responsibility?
I know it's horrible.
Well, there might be one thing that everyone would like to control, and that is the winning numbers for the mega lottery. Just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
man. Oh yeah, that I would have loved. But did I want it?
Let's get
We
into
all
that
do
law of
love
attraction
religion.
stuff.
I know, right? One thing
Do you
I
want
have
to
not
attract the winning
attracted
numbers
yet.
for the lottery?
Yeah, bro.
Gotta
Gotta
do
wait
something.
now. Hmm.
Danny, the floor is yours, darling.
So with social media, I mean, I'm going to be 50 soon, for God's sakes, and it's tough. I've been doing it for like the last, what, 8 years. And I swear to God, my numbers, I try to do these videos and I don't like to be on camera anymore. I don't know why. I used to when I was young, but I just don't anymore. But I forced myself to do it. But now I'm kind of like okay with it because I don't want to force myself. So when I do it, I feel like, I don't know, I just feel some days I'm like, I don't care. And other days I just feel like I don't have much to share. Like it really is a very difficult thing these days. I grew up and I don't, how old are you, Jared?
37.
37. Okay. So I didn't have cell phones when I was in high school and I didn't have, we had beepers like in 12th grade, and there was no social media. So I don't even
Mhm.
have pictures really of when I was drinking and using and had no eyebrows and I shaved my head and had a hole in my chin. And I wish I
Right.
did because man, I would love to see that. But
Mhm.
um like social media can be really challenging and I can see
Mhm.
how that would be a hard thing for people who not only are trying to get sober that maybe can't, they're ashamed.
Mhm.
um, I mean, it's just become such an integral part of our lives, and
Yeah.
it's really a lot. I mean, how do you feel about it? Good and bad,
Uh,
right?
yeah, most definitely. I think an active addiction, what you find, for me at least in social media, it was just a highlight reel, right? is what a lot of it became. So you can put, or not you, but I can put any appearance at that time on social media to appear that my life is good. Like everything is
Yeah.
going great, and I feel like a lot of people fall into that realm, and then that becomes like, oh, they're doing awesome. Why can't I do what they're doing? So you fall into this realm of comparison. Um,
Yeah.
Now, for me, social media is just about connection, right? Like I really use the social part of the media to, build a community of support. If you need help, reach out. If I can do something for you, let me know. And I also like to give love back. I just some nights find myself scrolling and commenting because a like and a comment could change somebody's day. Like, oh, somebody is paying attention. And
Yeah.
I agree with you, Daniela. There's been days where I want to walk away from all of it, right? If I
Yeah.
didn't have, I don't like saying followers, but if I didn't have supporters, if I didn't feel like I had to post a picture to talk about the podcast, I would delete everything and just only go see the people in the community. But it's like, I already started it, at least let's see where this road leads to if I just continue
Yeah.
to build and grow and connect.
I mean, that's what it is these days. It is social media,
Yeah,
everything. And
that's
it's
it.
just it's
Everything.
fast as lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And like with this platform, the live
Mm-hmm.
interactions, and we would love to have somebody come up and ask questions for Jarrod. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but throw them out there. Let's come on up, because that's what we're here for: live, interactive, you know,
Okay.
entertainment with each
Okay.
other. So, if anyone wants to come up, let's do this. Um,
Yeah, nah, that'd be awesome. And the traveling of information these days. And I think, some of the people that I go to the communities, they're younger. So I get to tell them, like, man, you really, all of you have the world at your fingertips, right?
yeah,
Because I'm in the generation where we saw the two TVs become the bigger TVs to flat screens. We saw
hmm
dad's big CD tower in the closet that I couldn't touch turn into, like thousands of songs in my pocket. So, how I
yeah,
understand the internet as just a place to share and grow, these kids now get to understand the internet in a space of SEOs and marketing.
yeah,
So it's like really cool to see the of the guards almost that they get to come into a world where it's already there. If you start now at 16, 17, sharing like a day-to-day regimen, like by 25 you should have some money in your pocket and a brand built ABCD. So it's really cool from that standpoint to watch.
yeah, yeah. It's real sad about the Aaron Carter, thing. And yeah, Aaron Carter was messed up. He had a lot of mental health issues, but the poor guy, I mean, I did follow him on social media. And when he would have a live, I would just kind of go on there. I don't know why. I didn't grow up in his era. I really didn't know his childhood music or anything,
Mhm.
but I just knew he was suffering. I could see it. I could tell, and it's just amazing what the people would do and how they would. I mean, there are some real evil trolls on the internet, and they just want to
Hmm.
really hurt people.
Disrupt. Yeah.
And it's just so terrible that, there's nothing that you can really do about these people. I mean, you could block them, but this guy, he was just bashed from hundreds and hundreds of
Top to
people in
bottom.
a live were just,
Really?
oh, it was horrible. It was so sad. I just
Oh
couldn't believe
no.
it. Yeah.
Dang.
And he still kept showing up though, and he
Mhm.
would talk to his fans, but it's just sad because here's this guy who's really talented. I mean, he really
Mhm.
was talented, this guy. And
Mhm.
Hmm.
his life just, everybody just went along with everything. And I mean, yeah, with addiction, it's tough. You can't force somebody to quit. But,
Right.
Not at all.
it's like
Mhm.
him and 500 other kids probably died that day because of the
Right.
fentanyl and
Yeah,
taking to,
very
Uh,
much.
I mean,
it's
You know,
they're
I've
tough.
always
fucking
said this.
dying every day,
Mhm.
just hundreds of them.
Every single day. And I talked to my buddy Brock. He's in Arizona. He's a retired police officer now. And in the discussion, I was just like, man, it's crazy because I don't believe this stuff was around in my active addiction days, because I would have been dead and gone, because especially serving powder, you could have gave me anything. I could have sold that to anybody, because it just was what it was. I'm going to trust that the person that's handing me this is telling me what it is. So it's like, when I sit back and think about my life, I really hurt for the people that I affected by my recklessness. Like me, I'm cool with me. Like, I've forgiven myself. What I sought out to do is, like, if I could remember a majority of the people that I did sell drugs to, I reached out to them and apologized. Because that was like the downside of social media too, is like where they thought they were posting a highlight reel of them having fun at a party, and this is when I'm getting sober. I could actively see their appearance declining. And I could only think, like, man, I had something to do with that, and that part of it hurts. So,
Yeah.
and then, the piggyback on the troll situation, it sucks. And online is like a crazy place, man. And I pray for his family, for everything that he probably went through, being in those elements and having access to some of that stuff, on the drop of a phone call. It's got to be rough. And I wouldn't know how to take. Actually, my guy actually asked me that on the podcast. Like, what would you do if we had 100 negative comments? And I was like, well, for me, I'd probably just leave a heart. That's but that's who I am, and I don't know how everybody else feels, because I know, like, cyberbullying is a real thing. I just think I've been through so much real world stuff that it's like, bro, I could care less what you say about me online. So it's tough. It's tough.
What I can appreciate about that is you've mentally conditioned yourself to ignore the trolls. But there are people out there in our community who are very, very sensitive, and with good reason.
Very. Right.
We were talking about Aaron Carter now, but I'd like to take it to a couple of years ago with this Demi Lovato saga and the whole California sober debacle that erupted. I watched that interview, and the one thing I was hoping, I was still on FM radio at the time, the one thing I was not that I was hoping would not happen was that my producer would email me the story, that I would have to talk about it, and ultimately I had to. I mean, what could I do? And I said, because everyone was anti-Demi Lovato, big time. And I said, you know what, instead of bashing Demi Lovato, why not bash the journalist who asked her questions about her sobriety? Because it was honestly, an attempt from the journalist to try and attract some form of tabloid journalism to sell copy.
Right.
And as much as sex sells, controversy sells. And I'd like to bring it to Aaron Carter. Everyone trashed him on that live, and now there's thousands of questions jumping forth as to why did he take his life. The same question happened, or the same questions arose back in the 90s. Do you remember this, Danny, with Brad Renfro, who died, and Corey Haim?
Oh, yeah.
Former child actors.
The other Corey's not dead. I used to hang out with him, and it was pretty crazy.
Corey Feldman.
He's been sober about probably a few more years than I have, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But the fact remains standing is, if you want to talk about a sensitive subject like that in the media, rather have someone with lived experience like moi and Mademoiselle. Let us give the human experience, because we've got the knowledge, but not just that, we've got the lived experience. So we can come with a more of a sympathy angle, and we can divulge the story a whole lot more, excuse repetitiveness, sympathetically versus someone else who is just trying to bleed copy to be the first one in front of the line to push that story and then ultimately get a paycheck and then go without absolute scant regard for the person that has just passed and the family members and the friends who are involved. That is just mean. That's checkbook journalism, and I'm not a fan of it whatsoever.
That's awesome that you can stand in that position, because it's like a protector almost, right? Like you get to make sure that you're protecting the people who would be subjected to the trolling from someone that's just after the check looking for that negative headline to sell copies.
Well, Jared, we all can do it. And you know what?
Hmm.
Please laugh at me if you want to, because I'm going to say something that is so simple. We all know it, but why don't we practice it? And this is not just in recovery, but this is in life. If we don't have anything positive to say about someone or something, we can agree to
Yeah,
disagree,
right.
but at the end of the day,
Say
if you don't have
nothing.
anything nice to say, shut the fuck up.
Bird, you got hit one of your buttons.
You know what? I think people get so misunderstood. I know I'm misunderstood, online. Like I can't. I try to get in with these girls. They want nothing to do with me. Like I try to message them and talk with them. They don't want nothing. Am I too old? I don't know, but it's just it's a tough situation when for anyone social media, and it's just. I'm grateful that you're here today, and I'm thankful that you came on the show, and we'd love to have you back, of course. And we want
Jared,
to be on
please, you
your
have
show.
to.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm always honored and grateful anytime someone reaches out and just wants to hear me speak because, in my head, I've done so much wrong. This is like the minimum I can do is to show up and have a conversation and talk about, the gifts of recovery. You know what I'm saying? And then we definitely got to set that up. I love to have you all on the Redeem Yourself podcast. That would be awesome. Let's make that happen.
So
And
what's
Jared,
this sexy lips that are on you? You
sobriety
sell
is
Oh,
sexy.
clothing.
yeah.
Sobriety
Sobriety
is
is
sexy.
sexy.
So where can everybody find your podcast? Your sobriety is sexy. Anything
All
you want to
right.
share? We'd love to know.
All right, so everything that I do online is strength and time. Whatever you want to find out, if you Google strength and time, I'm going to be the only thing that pops up. The website, strengthandtime.com, is where all
Okay.
the clothing, mugs, blog, and Redeem Yourself podcast. It streams on all platforms. Some of the older lives are on YouTube and the other platform. But yeah, if you search either one of those, you'll see everything you need to know.
Fantastic. Maybe you can come back on the show and talk about meditation because we have a meditation person on here right now, and that's something I really would like to learn more about because it's very difficult for me.
The one that I do is it's a guided meditation by Tony Robbins. I learned it when I went to the Unleash the Power Within seminar in 2017 in New Jersey.
Hell
So
yeah.
it was cool. It was awesome, and it was the first time I felt like I actually meditated. So I still use it like I'm not doing the work. I just Google and YouTube that meditation. It's 15 minutes, doesn't take long. But what I like about it is he takes you through three phases. The first phase is like everything you're grateful for. The second phase is like honoring your heart and everything that like matters to you, just like your body, your cells, your blood, your breath, your mind, like everything that you have and conscious. And then the third phase is stating what you want to see happen in life and really setting those intentions towards it. So it's just a cool 3-step meditation that I use.
Thanks for the tip.
No, thank you.
Awesome.
Chris, you want to lead us
And
out?
if you'd like more of that, be sure to tune into the Jarrod Collier show. Let me just get that name again. Otherwise, I'm going to look like a complete peanut. No, here's a picture of Daniel's face. The podcast is called Redeem Yourself, which you can get on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And
Yes,
do
yes,
check
yes.
out Redeem Yourself website so you can get some cool gear. That right there is Jarrod Collier with the Sobriety is Sexy shirt. That right there is Daniela Park with a Happy, Joyous and Free shirt. And I am Anonymous with a Joker t-shirt. If you missed out on this episode, you're more than welcome to get a hold of this podcast on demand, also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thank you again to our guest, Jarrod Collier. And remember always, life is better when you're doing it sober, because madness is the emergency exit.
Mm.
Look after yourself, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So what I do, just turn this off now?
I'll shut it down.